Okay, good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Historic Preservation Committee. Madam Clerk, will you please call roll?
Yes. Committee Member Mueller.
Here.
Committee Member Soriano.
Here.
Vice Chair Purcell.
Here. Thank you. This is the time we set aside for public communications to talk about any item that is not on tonight's agenda. Madam Clerk, is there anyone who would like to speak to us this evening on any item not on the agenda?
Yes. Tori Ruprecht. Are you Tori?
Yes.
Yes, you can come speak right up here.
Hello? Okay. My name is Tori Ruprecht. I live at 141 South Laurel Street. I wanted to follow up because I put an application in to actually join the committee in May, and I was wondering if there was any status update on the processing of those applications and to kind of get an idea on, timeline and that kind of thing, if possible.
I can actually answer that. So the city has a number of vacancies on the boards and commissions throughout for all the city. There is a subcommittee that council has created goes through those appointments. They are in the process of doing that. They're kind of going in the order of priority right now based on the ones that don't have enough members to meet right now. So they are going to get to the HPC, Historic Preservation Committee. They just haven't yet. So that's in progress.
Okay. So is there no, is there like a time frame kind of roughly, or is it,
they're going commission by commission, committee by committee. So I don't have an exact time frame for you right now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Appreciate it. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone else that would like to speak on any item not on the agenda?
It looks like we do. Come on up. Thank you. We have Clary Rudd.
Okay. So I came to learn tonight what qualifies a building to be classified as historical. I'm wondering if the building I'm in could be classified if it's over 100 years, or does that matter?
Am I able to just respond, or do you? We haven't had many of these types of questions come up, so just curious.
Typically, it's not a question and answer, but if it's a cut and dry.
Okay. So there is a general age requirement, usually 45 years old or older are the buildings that are considered, but then there's also specific criteria that the building would have to meet, and there's local criteria that the city has. There's also state and federal criteria. So we can point you in the direction of, I believe the city's criteria is listed in, we have a historic preservation ordinance in the city, and that's where the criteria is listed out. Usually it's association with an important event, person, or it could be also significant for its architecture, are the main ones.
Okay. So it doesn't matter if the person's from the 1800s like me to be qualified.
Oh yeah, you could probably qualify.
Okay, I'll find out.
And you're welcome to come visit. We have a counter downstairs that's open to the public. So for general questions like that, if you want to talk to a planner about more specifics, you're welcome to do that.
The counter is where?
Room 117 downstairs. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, any other comments?
There are not.
Okay, great. With that, we can move on to our consent item number 1, approval of the Historic Preservation Committee meeting minutes from June 16th, 2022. Were there any comments on the minutes?
No, there were not. Oh, sorry. You guys.
It's still applicable. I don't have it. No comments? None from you?
No.
Okay. I will make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from June 16th, 2022 as presented.
And I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Vice Chair Soriano.
Yes.
Committee Member Mueller.
Yes.
Chair Purcell.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Great. And with that, we can move on to the next item on our agenda, which is our formal item, project number 14605, Mission Apartments Historical Preservation Review located at 7997 South Oak Street. And I believe we have a staff presentation.
Yes, thank you. This is project 15290. This is a historic preservation design review for the Mission Hotel. Next slide. The project site's located in downtown Ventura at the northwest corner of the intersection of Oak and Santa Clara. It's just south of Main Street. The project site is in the downtown area in the urban core, surrounded by many other commercial uses and varying 1 to 2 story buildings. Next slide. The project is comprised of 2 parcels containing 3 buildings. As part of the full application outside of the design review, there's a lot line adjustment proposed to change the lot configuration between the 2 lots. So the buildings at 365 and 375 Santa Clara will remain on one property, and then 9 through 97 South Oak will remain on the other property. This is just for context. So any modifications to the other buildings are not proposed at this time. Next slide. This property on Oak Street is developed in 1926 as the Mission Hotel and was identified in the 2007 Historic Resource Survey for the downtown specific plan as a contributor to the potential historic district. Also in 2017, it's designated as a local landmark, landmark number 110, and also received a Mills Act. Next slide. These are the original plans for the property. The hotel was associated with events that made a meaningful contribution to the community, and it embodies distinctive characteristics of a type, period, or method of construction. The architecture is associated with the time periods of the oil and automobile land boom, as well as the post-World War II prosperity and freeway periods. Next slide. Part of those periods, there were character-defining features of the building that were identified in the historic resource assessment. That would be the phase 2. And it includes that it's a 2-story rectangular building plan with a simple massing and a very symmetrical composition. There are storefronts at the ground floor, the roof clay barrel tiles that face the street, cement plaster exterior wall finish, the wood double hung windows with the wood stucco sills, recessed primary entries with the fully glazed wood doors, side lights, and transom windows. Next slide. The proposed project consists of remodeling the existing building. So the existing building is 18,000 square feet, 2 stories mixed use. Ground floor is approximately 10,000 square feet of commercial, and then the second floor is approximately 8,000 square feet of residential. The project includes rehabilitation of the storefront, new windows and doors, removing the awnings and shutters, paint the exterior to a similar color, no plaster work, other site improvements. There's no additional square footage added to the site, and then they're also doing just interior remodel work. So in the downtown specific plan, the development standards don't apply to historic resources such as this landmark, and it's really only subject to the parking requirements, which those will be reviewed by the Planning Commission. So the purpose of the Historic Preservation Committee is to assess the design components of the downtown specific plan historic design guidelines, in addition to the Secretary of the Interior standards. The applicant has kind of revised the project along with staff's help and the consultant, the historic consultant. And then subsequently, staff had communications with the historic consultant, and those revisions do meet the standards. So part of the phase 2, you'll see some differences from the plan. So just note that we've addressed those throughout the revised plans. Next slide. So here's the front elevation. This includes restoring the storefronts, new doors, windows, removing the awnings, replacing the roof. And this is to bring the building closer to its original historic nature. Next slide. This is the south elevation off of Santa Clara, and the applicant initially proposed 2 doors on the side elevation, but removed one to leave just that one opening, which resembles, again, the original historic design of the building, and where the existing opening once was. Next slide. And the rear elevation, this includes a new door and windows, and the doors and windows have been designed to be differentiated from the historic frontage, so they don't create a sense false of history. And these modifications to the buildings do meet the standards set by the Secretary of the Interior, along with the DTSP. Next slide. The proposed project includes these renovations, and it brings the building both back to its original state, but also up to current standards. So the design overall definitely meets the intent of the downtown specific plan and also the standards. Therefore, recommendation is for HPC to recommend the Planning Commission approve the historic design review as proposed. This is it for staff's presentation.
Great. Thank you so much for your presentation. Do any committee members have questions specifically for staff? Go ahead.
Well, this may be a question, if HRG is here, that they could answer, and you can defer to them, but my question is, does anyone know what the original occupants of the first floor retail area in 1926, who they were and what they were selling or doing there?
From my knowledge, I mean, the phase 2 would have assessed some of the historical uses in it, which I don't believe were identified in the phase 2, which was attached to your staff report. Historically, though, as of the 60s, the city has records of uses through business licenses, but I do not have records from 1926.
I was curious as to whether it was part of the hotel. There might be a coffee shop or a dining room area or a lobby or something, or whether it was strictly rented out retail space. But that's not known from the records that we have.
Correct. As far as we know, it was solely a hotel.
Okay, thanks.
Committee member Soriano, I don't.
I was curious about the west elevation. It has the solid door on one side, or at the top of the staircase, and then the doors with lights. The solid doors are the historically accurate doors? No.
We can have the discussion with the architect who is here, and this was part of the discussion that we had with HRG as well as to what elements were historic versus not. But the west elevation overall, there were 2 versions of that door, and either one of them would have been sufficient for the design that they're showing. So the open on the left-hand side is the original versus the new on the right, but neither versions of it were inconsistent with the standards.
Okay.
That kind of makes sense.
I was wondering, yeah, because they did 2, so I wondered if one was more accurate than the other or if there was a reason.
No.
My other question is, in the HRG report on page 14, it says it's unclear if the project materials, whether the existing flooring on the ground floor will be removed, but it's unclear if that flooring is original to the building. How will it be evaluated when they start to do the renovations, whether that flooring is original? Oh, I guess you're not on.
So sorry.
Red
It's the
button.
red button. It's hard to see. You have to like turn it.
It'll light up.
Just quick question on process, though. Is this the time we can communicate with the applicant?
So typically we would allow for the applicant, if they want to make some type of presentation, they can do that. If they want to,
Okay. Do we need
it's
to
up to
hear from the
them.
public first or no? Is all
We would first allow the applicant to present, and then we
Okay.
go to public hearing.
Well, I can answer that question. So The existing floor is a slab on grade.
Oh, okay.
So there's been many different floor coverings over the years, and I can also shed a little bit more light on the uses, if that's okay, that have been downstairs. So in our work, we've uncovered permits for things ranging from a department store downstairs, where they occupied seemingly the whole ground floor, and then it was subsequently subdivided into, there was a restaurant use for a large portion of the downstairs. And then there's been various retail establishments through the years. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, I was curious.
So yeah, now I would say now would be the time to open it up to the applicant if he wants to add anything to the staff
Okay.
presentation.
Did you have anything else you'd like to present us with this evening? I have questions for you, but I think they're better. Is now appropriate for general questions for him as well? Okay.
We can do that if you'd prefer.
No, I'd like you to present
Okay.
anything you'd like to, and then I'm
Okay.
sure we'll have questions.
Well, thank you, first of all. And the intent of this project is to bring this building back to its original appearance, obviously, and honor that by uncovering the majority of these openings that are still there. So the good thing is that they did us a bit of a favor. All of these openings are still there. They've just been covered up for the most part. So we don't have to do too much reconstruction or digging and plans to find them, figure out what they are. Especially on the rear of the building, which is just peppered with windows on the ground floor. And really all we're doing is uncovering those, doing what we need to do to make sure they're whole and operable. And then we are combining, I think, 2 windows and a door on the lower right-hand corner to make a new, larger opening that will be at the rear of a restaurant space. And the majority of the rest of the building will remain as is. The opening on Santa Clara Street, thank you, is in fact still there. It's simply covered over with sort of a board and plaster, and on the interior there's just sort of drywall over the top of it. So that will make it easy. We don't know exactly what the tile is at the base yet, but we're hoping that when we uncover that, it's still there, and we can find something that's similar, or hopefully it's something that can be recreated. And that's really it for this elevation. Along the front, again, these will be reconstructed based on the original drawings. The openings themselves are there, but the clear story has been removed, and obviously the storefront system has been modified greatly over the years. So, again, the intent is just to bring this building back to where it began, and the owner is dedicated to do that. So,
Great.
that's it.
Thank you. I have a few questions. I think it's a great project. It's really exciting. I think this building seems so underutilized, honestly, so I think it's going to be really valuable to this part of town. I'm curious what materials, so are the windows on the second floor staying?
Yes.
Okay. And then windows on the first floor, what are the frames? Are they going to be wood, or did you decide?
They are a metal framed window.
Okay.
And they do note, there's a small note in the original drawings that say it's a metal.
Oh, they
frame
were
window.
originally metal?
Yeah.
Interesting. And the openings on the rear, too, will those be metal?
They are steel window.
They are?
Yeah.
Okay. And so those are actually in place?
They're still in place.
Wow. So that's amazing. I thought you meant just the openings when you were speaking before
No,
that.
we haven't uncovered all of them, but the ones that we've opened up from the interior, you can see
Okay.
still there.
So will you be restoring those actual windows?
Yes, if we have to.
Great. Okay, that's wonderful. Any other questions of the applicant? Yep.
Are you prepared to discuss the HRG report? Or do we have a representative from HRG?
Not with us tonight, no.
Okay. Well, in the HRG report, and if you don't feel you're responsible for this, then okay. But I'm trying to follow the line of reasoning here on the openings for the proposed commercial space on the first floor. And the plan is to go back to 1926 and find the wood and make it, historically relevant. And that, of course, is, one goal. But the standard which is used to identify these things says that where remodeled entrances are consistent with historic processes at work in, say, the mid-century era of new prosperity in our timeline of historical events, the property, if it exemplifies the critical need for residential housing during the oil boom of the 1920s and the modernization of the retail storefronts after World War II to emphasize a new prosperity and for its embodiment of the characteristics of the Spanish colonial revival style. And you're working to the colonial revival style, and that would make the most sense. But at the same time, the historic landmark designation of 2017 cites that, well, there may have been some modernization that was part of the post-war era of prosperity, and that this then might be of historical significance. And the HRG report cites a standard 4 that says, well, changes to a property that have acquired significance in their own right will be retained and preserved. In other words, if something was modified during a historically relevant era, that might be considered historically significant and should be maintained. And HRG came to the conclusion that that was not applicable. And I was hoping for some expansion on their written explanation to follow the thinking on this. Do you have any ideas?
Well, I would say that likely the changes that occurred, particularly the storefronts that I think you're referring to, happened after that time period that you're referring to, age of expansion. Those storefronts are anodized aluminum,
right? Yeah.
Which would occur much later than that time.
Right, and they do cite this, although, as I say, the landmark designation says, well, any changes that might have occurred, mid-century, well, that should be considered as historically significant. And what the HRG report is saying is that doesn't apply because a lot of those changes were after the freeway came through and we had shopping centers, and that wasn't quite the same historical era. And what you're saying is that the anodized aluminum that you're finding now even postdates that. So that even if there was something of historical significance in the way of a change to those openings, it's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. And they say it happened at an unknown date. And so we're going to roll it back to 1926. I guess that clarifies it.
Yeah.
I appreciate that conversation. I'm actually curious, so I know that you made changes based on HRG's report, the first report. So what were the original proposed?
It's fairly simple if we go to the rear elevation. Thank you. So in the original drawings on the second floor, the fire escape on the left-hand side of the building is shown, along with a pair of doors with glass lights. To the right, that fire escape did not exist at that time, and there was just a window in that location. So it was recommended that we not match the glass light door and just do a solid door instead.
Okay.
And then the second comment had to do with the Santa Clara elevation. We had essentially created a second large opening that was similar to the one in the lower right-hand corner, closer to that single door towards the rear of what will be a restaurant space. And the idea was to bring more light and activity into the space, but The difficulty is in creating a design that was dissimilar enough, but similar enough because of the Ventura Code. It just became too much of a became too difficult.
Yeah.
Along with some structural upgrades that would need to occur to accompany that.
Okay, thank you. So for this opening, you don't know if that tile still exists yet?
We don't
It was
know.
tile originally?
Yes.
Okay. And then on the front elevation, well, I assume you'll go back with, you'll have to make a design decision if there's not tile there. Did you have anything in mind for that specifically? I guess you'll wait and see.
Yeah, we will work with our historic consultant to try and identify a suitable
Something
material.
appropriate.
Yeah. Fingers crossed, though, there's something there.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions specifically for the applicant? Okay. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
At this time, we will open it up for public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any members of the public who would like to speak to us on this item?
No one has indicated to me that they wish to speak on this item.
Okay. Thank you. I think at that point then we can close the public hearing and we can deliberate. Any comments?
Well, I appreciate the complete nature of your work here and the staff report as well. And there's been a lot of support. Well, the two emails that we received from public comment were in support of this project, and it looks like a great opportunity to pull a structure that has some pretty good integrity into historical preservation from 1926. So thanks for all the hard work, and we encourage this. That's our job here, and we're glad to see that it's being undertaken with such seriousness. I was getting all sidetracked into window openings and door entries, but that becomes an issue on Main Street, and there's historical impact there, which was not the case here. And debating the technical fine points of that is one thing, but in just my lay opinion, it would make more sense to go back to something approaching the Spanish colonial style and 1926 version, and trying to distinguish what happened in 1952 from 1920 or 30. So I would say that this is the right approach. Whether or not we can argue about the HRG report, that's for another day.
I also think it's great that we actually have drawings, because I feel like it's pretty rare that we have drawings to rely on, and there's a lot more conjecture, so it makes sense to me to rely on them. That's really great. Did you have any comments, committee member Soriano?
I think it's a great project, and I really hope you do find a lot of the original elements intact. It's always the hope, right?
Right.
I guess I'll just say, yeah, I'm greatly in support of the project. I think it's great. I think all the steps that are being made to preserve are wonderful. It's exciting that those windows are under there. I did also go back and forth about the standard that HRG called out as it, because I think the whole, I don't know, I'm an architectural historian by trade, and we all debate about the differentiation. It's hard for design sometimes.
Yeah,
so.
and especially in a building like this,
It's a tough call.
Yeah.
It's very simple, and to try and make some distinction
It's hard.
on the entrances and the windows and the ceiling or the top, it would be more difficult and more trouble, and lead to, I think, a less satisfactory result.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's always a tough call.
Yeah. I do have a question about, so we're making a motion. I'm unclear on if the motion is just in support of the project or if it's the actual design. Like, and what the process is moving forward at this point in terms of changes to the design and things like that.
Right. You would make a motion saying if you were proposing some sort of recommendation for the applicant or for staff to include into the report that would then go to Planning Commission for final action. So if you have any recommendations, you would make those in your motion.
Okay. Just so we could deliberate as a group, I mean, the only real there's a few design nitty-gritty things that are outstanding, so I would just, maybe we put in the motion something regarding ongoing consultation with either an architectural historian or a historical architect, I'm sure whoever the applicant's already working with, or just that the project be, I mean, we want the project to remain in compliance with the standards is my, so, but I feel the larger design questions are worked out already. Any thoughts on how we would structure a motion?
Well, I guess if you wanted to put in a caveat of some kind, it would have to be contingent on discovery of some new materials or some other process that hasn't been uncovered yet from the, not demolition, but, the reconstruction work may uncover more information. Is that a fair statement?
It could, yeah, it could. I'm just more thinking of, as things progress, there's a few little items that are outstanding. For example, the tile, if tile isn't found, what's going to go back in place of, or on the new bulkheads, things like that. So I would just say maybe we could just put in the motion, if anyone is wanting to make a motion, that we make a motion to support the project as presented, assuming that ongoing consultation with qualified.
Right. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that's going to follow from any restoration that's not been done or any exploration that's not been done as yet. So we could probably say something like, we approve this with the provision that should any discoveries be made during the reconstruction process in terms of materials or processes, that it then proceed in compliance with the historical standard. That would be one way to cover it, I think.
And I think staff agrees that would suffice, and we have that documented, so if someone felt inclined to make a motion, they could do that with that addition.
Okay. So just to clarify, though, the motion we're making is for this actual design, yes, in support of this design. So we'd be making a motion to support this design moving forward. Okay. I mean, I'm comfortable making a motion to support the design as presented, with the caveat that any deviations from this design be conducted in compliance with the standards.
That works.
Or if anyone has any wordsmithing they want to add to that, they could make a motion. I feel like doing it that way, there's no way to actually enforce
we have a motion on the table at this point, so.
That works, yeah, that works, because it's fairly succinct as well.
Well, if we're approving the design from an historical standpoint, then we're saying that we think everything has been addressed.
Right.
But what we're not sure of is that everything will be addressed in the event something comes up. And I'm not quite sure how to work that into a motion of approval. You either approve a design or you don't, I think, and that's going to be the cleanest way to send it up to the planning people. But perhaps there's some way for us to, just reaffirm that we need to have the standards followed in the event that changes are indicated by further restoration or construction.
And I believe that we have that captured, and we can read that back if you'd like, before we move forward.
Yeah, I was trying to capture what you guys were saying. So As a condition for Planning Commission, we can say any deviation, discovery of new elements, or modifications during the course of construction that you would then consult with a historic architect to confirm it's consistent with the standards.
Love it.
Okay, we have a motion on the table, and that has been read into the record as a part of that motion.
I made the motion, kind of.
I will second it then.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Committee Member Mueller.
Yes.
Vice Chair Soriano.
Yes.
Chair Purcell.
Yes.
The motion is passed.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for
Good
coming.
luck. With that, I believe we move on to staff communication. Does staff or any committee members have any items they would like to report of interest or to other committee members or the public? Or any questions?
I already kind of touched on it earlier, answering the gentleman's question, but I know it's been a topic of conversation in the last couple of meetings is about the appointments to this committee. And yes, so they're getting to the Historic Preservation Committee. So we look to have those interviews and appointments discussions soon.
Okay, I have one question of staff, which is just general question. If we have items that we would like to discuss that aren't on the agenda, do you recommend that we bring those to you in this format, like in a public meeting, and ask you to agendize them, or just bring them up as topics of discussion?
I mean, if you would like for a non-agenda item to be discussed, you can reach out to us offline. We can have it added to the agenda. I mean, we typically like for it to be, if it's going to be agendized, to be noticed and properly noticed. So.
Okay, great. Okay, well, anything else, committee members? With that, I will adjourn the meeting. Have a good evening.
Thank you.